Welcome to another episode of Dr. MC's Self-Care Cabaret podcast. I'm Teresa Melito-Conners, a PhD level self-care expert in the greater Boston area with a passion for helping others recognize the importance of caring for themselves. Today's episode is a conversation with my friend Samantha, or Sam, Seelig. I met Sam several years ago in a Zumba class. I knew immediately she was someone I wanted to be friends with. Her smile lights up a room, her energy is infectious, and she's a good person. We clicked immediately. The first thing she ever said to me was something along the lines of, "Hey, you're a really good dancer, and I hope you don't mind that I'm going to stand right behind you and stare at you because it's easier for me to follow along that way as opposed to watching the teacher." I chuckled, but of course, in any future classes together, I made sure to be clear in my movement and exaggerate where I could so my new friend could watch. From there, the friendship blossomed. When she announced earlier this year she was writing her first book, I jumped at the chance to be one of her beta readers and rate her forward. Sam's book, She is Sparkling, a collection of selections, Volume 1, short stories about love, loss, and life, is due out later this year, and I cannot wait for folks to read it. The stories she shares in the book contain real-life lessons, raw emotion, courage, and vulnerability from the person who lived them. She touches upon many universal human struggles in a relatable way, such as grief, loss, death, failure, body image concerns, weight issues, career changes, cross-country moves, big dreams, friends, family, and more. All the things that make us human. I am delighted to have Sam with us today on the podcast. Welcome, Sam. I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Teresa. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
So we're going to get started right away, right from the get-go. I want to know what self-care looks like for you and how you balance all that you do in life.
First, I want to tell you I'm really glad you sent this question ahead of time so I could think about it.
Well, good. I'm glad.
I'm really awful at taking care of myself. And if I look back on my life, which I've been doing a lot of as I'm starting a new job, I'm mentoring someone, I've been trying to come up with kind of my story. I think, God, it's just such a bad job taking care of myself in my 20s and 30s. I was either one way of being obsessed with a goal and having to hit it, micromanaging what I ate, micromanaging how long I slept, micromanaging my time, or overindulging and not caring at all. And now, post-pandemic, post losing my mom, maybe, self-care is so much that you prompt every day on my Instagram. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's can you rest? Can you have a snack? Can you go take a long shower? Can you just take a drive? Do you need to clear your head? Do you just need some time alone? And I've never been somebody who, especially if you know me, is good at being alone. And now I've gotten really good at being alone. Like, can I just be peaceful in my thoughts? Can I just practice my breath? Can I just disconnect from the world for even 15 minutes and come back feeling refreshed and better to take on whatever task I'm doing? So I would say maybe because 2021 is the year of self-care, and I'm using air quotes, folks that can't see me, but it really is the year of self-care, which is why Teresa is so popular right now. Capitalizing on self-care.
100%.
I think, yes, I think it's all of a sudden the little pockets of time you can take to make yourself feel better, that at the end of the day you think, oh, I got a lot done and I feel good. I don't feel burnt out. I don't feel exhausted because I did those little things throughout the day.
So important. You touched on a couple of really important key points that I want to drive home. One is you recognize that maybe in previous years you haven't necessarily put your needs first. And I think that that's common. We tend to not do that until either life forces us to kind of face our health or, maybe a global pandemic kind of puts things into perspective. So I actually am somewhat enjoying that people are recognizing the importance of self-care, and I'm sorry that it took a global pandemic to get us here, but that people are beginning to recognize the importance and they are saying no and they're setting clearer boundaries. And I also love that you pointed out small things, little shifts, right? We tend to think that if we can't do like the extreme or we can't do every single thing every single day, then just why bother? But really,
right, if it's not all or nothing, you didn't do anything. Right. It's like, that's actually not true.
Right. Yeah. And so little things. So tell me a little bit more, like what are some of the little things? Like you mentioned breathing, or so what does that look like?
So I'm a project manager as a trade, and I would say my job is pretty stressful overall. So I will have moments of like, oh my God, I just overscheduled myself. Okay, pause. Before I actually go to this meeting, do I need to be there? Am I actually in a place where I can be present and be useful? Or could I read the notes and add a comment or two in an email? And that would actually be better for the person who's hosting the call. So I do that a lot at work. I also do hey, I said I was going to have lunch at this time. Even if you're not hungry, get off your butt, get away from your desk, walk around the house, because I work from home most times. Even just get some different air. I joke, get different air in your nose. Like just move to a different room, breathe for a little bit, and see what you need to make yourself feel better in that moment. And see if you can come back and feel better for the rest of the afternoon. Or there are days when I think, you know what, I have a headache and I need a nap, so I will schedule a nap. Hey, 45-minute power nap, all for it.
I love it.
Thank you, pandemic. That has been one of the best things I've gained from a pandemic.
I think they call it a disco nap when you take like a quick little nap.
Ooh,
Is it disco? That might not be 45 minutes, might be pushing it for a disco nap, but I like it. We're going to go with it. And
it's a very long disco.
And I also like the get different air in your nose.
Oh, get different air in
your
nose.
I like that. No, it's true. Because we tend to sit.
We go for little rides and she'd be like, we're going to change the air in our nose. Like, okay.
I like that. That's awesome. So I also want to make sure we talk a lot about your first book that is coming out. This is so cool. You downplay it, but I think this is amazing. And, I had the honor of being a beta reader and I wrote you forward, but I want you to share a little bit about the journey and tell us about like how you came up with the idea to put out a book, why, and, what we can expect. And if you know kind of the timeline of what works, I know when the book will be out.
Yeah, so officially I had said summer and now it's going to be more like fall-ish.
That's okay.
So my joke is my next book is going to be how to write a book, because I have learned so much that nobody tells you in the beginning that I'm like, oh, I wish I had known that 6 months ago. I would have done something differently. So to back up, I've been writing, honestly, since I was little. I wanted to be a journalist for a very long time. I really figured out maybe at like 14 or 15, I couldn't just write whatever I wanted. And then I was like, oh, never mind, journalism school. Okay, I'm done with that. And I wrote for a newspaper. I wrote for Creative Lit magazines. I had my own blog for years. It was about weight loss. It was about happiness. I kind of would just write about all different things that were relevant at the time. And then maybe 3 or 4 years ago, it evolved into pulling in music. So there's an ever-evolving soundtrack to my life, is my joke. And every person in my life, every instance of my life would remind me of a song. So I would have a song and then I would tell a story and throw it up in the blog with a little link to where you could listen to the song. And at some point I thought, oh my God, this will be the book I write. I'm going to write a collection of selections and it will be like my top 50 stories set to a song. Awesome. I'm off and running. So I started it in 2016 and I had like all the mappings out. It was going to look like a scrapbook. It was going to have this audio component. And then life gets in the way.
Sure.
Because life. So I just kind of put it on the shelf and it never manifested itself into anything. And then in 2020, I lost my mom, which, sorry, it was horrible. She was my best friend and my absolute favorite person in the world. And she would have been so excited for this that I thought, okay, I have to honor her by actually doing it. I have to honor her in the way I live. And by living, I have to go put this book out. So I said, okay, let's just do it. 2021, we are writing a damn book.
I love it.
So I pulled together all the stories I wanted. And I think I had 100 at the time. And I called one of my girlfriends who's an editor. And I'm like, I'm going to pay you to edit this. You need to tell me what I can scrap. And she's like, all right, first and foremost, we're cutting this in half. This is way too many stories. There will be a volume 2 if we need to go here. Cut it down. Start telling us just your favorites. Let's really cull this down. So we culled it down to 50. And then I enlisted, I put a note out to my Facebook asking for beta readers. And I want the audience to know Teresa responded in 30 seconds flat.
I was all over it. All over it.
I hadn't even, we were obviously friends with Fitness Studio. We had still been kept in touch, but I couldn't believe 30 seconds after posting, here she was. I thought, oh, wow, that's awesome. So flattered. And I got 4 beta readers total. And I picked 4 people that really knew me from different parts of my life, figuring, okay, there's a span of 15 years of stories we're covering here. Let's get some good feedback on whether or not I should even be telling these stories. And in some cases, the answer was no. The story doesn't need to be told anymore, which that right there is a great life lesson from my year. Some stories happened and in them you learned something and you can move on from it and you don't need to share it with the world anymore. Oh, what a concept. No. So I decided to publish through Kindle. Everyone said it was very easy. Spoiler, it's not very easy unless you are very familiar with formatting or Adobe, which I'm not familiar with. So I had to enlist a friend to help, Tyler, who's been really lovely. So he made my cover. He's an amazing artist. And put all my little stories together as an actual book, did all my editing, and then off to the printer we went, and I should be published October 1st is our
Oh my
goal.
God.
So
It's so exciting.
it's weird. It feels really real now. And I decided to go Kindle and paperback. So it's going to be like a tangible thing that you get to buy. Like, holy mackerel, I will have a book I can put on my own bookshelf to say, I wrote that. That's kind of cool.
I think it's really cool.
All right.
And I think you downplay it a little.
I'm excited. Thank you. I probably do. So we have this meeting at work and you have to go around and say like a fun fact about yourself. Who honestly, who enjoys saying fun facts? Nobody. And I usually say something stupid. In this case, I was like, oh, I'm writing my first book. Like I just said it super nonchalantly. Like, oh, it comes out in October. And everyone's like, oh my God, you wrote a book. Oh my God, what's it? I'm like, oh, I guess it is a big deal. Okay.
Well, yeah, don't downplay it. And one of the reasons I jumped at the opportunity, well, aside from you being a friend and I would help you with whatever, but I also I don't think we spend enough time building each other up. And I think especially as women, we tend to, sometimes we could, I could have easily looked at you writing a book and felt envious of that and been like, oh, she's writing a book. Why is she writing a book? But I didn't want, that's not, no, but I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. How can I help? She's looking for help. I'll help. Because then I think that we need to do more of that, helping to build each other up and building more community. So I did jump at the chance, and I do remember seeing the post, and I maybe spend too much time on Facebook is also the takeaway of this, but I'm excited for you. And I think it was a great accomplishment regardless of the outcome. I hope you write 1 million books and I hope it's wildly successful, but even if it's not, you still put this out. This was a goal. You reached it, you achieved it. And yep. I think it's really cool. And I can't wait to have the tangible copy in my hands in another few weeks, hopefully. And
thank you. And I have to say, people say, oh, as somebody who's metric driven, I've lost X amount of pounds in my life, I've managed X amount of projects. What's your metric for your book? And I'm like, nope, just publishing the book is the metric. Did I succeed in publishing it? Check. I don't care if I sell 2 copies. That is not the goal. The goal is just to do it.
Well, I can guarantee you're going to at least sell one.
That is my right? my dad was like, I'll buy at least 5.
Perfect.
Sam.
So, you're already at 6. I think, so I think you can bump that metric up. No, but seriously, and we tend to be so hard on ourselves, and I recognize that too. And we downplay. I do the same thing even. I'm like, oh yeah, I had a recent collaboration with Nike. Yeah, no big deal. It's wait.
No big deal. Or I have my PhD. No big deal.
These things are accomplishments, and they should be celebrated.
They are a big deal.
As such. So
how many other people have their PhD? Not very many.
Not a lot. No. It's only 2% of the people in the world, or actually under 2%, I think, that have their PhD. Wow. And the numbers are even less for women. So there you go. All right, next question. I think you have some really insightful messages in the book and important takeaways. So one that stood out to me is when you talked about how not to push. And you elaborated in the book with a great list of times that you tried to push or kind of force something and how that worked out. Can you share a little bit more about that idea?
I laughed so hard when I read this question because I am someone that, Teresa knows this, is bossy and pushy and I want my own way. And for years I had this thing of well, I'm just going to make it happen because I decided this is how we're going to do things, right? Of course, that's how the universe should work. Spoiler, that is not how the universe works. So in some areas of my life, it worked. Weight loss, yep, I was successful when I forced myself to be in, kind of unnatural routines. Embracing exercise worked for some periods of time. Pushing my career forward worked for some periods of time. But the backstory of Do Not Push is I was in love with this guy who was a friend, and it just kept not working out. And I wasn't getting the sign from the universe. I wasn't picking it up because sometimes I'm a little dense. And I was on the phone with my best friend, and she says, Sam, at some point you have to accept that by not pushing, you're allowing the universe to unfold as it's supposed to. And by forcing the outcome, you're not going to end up with what you think you're going to end up with. And I'm like, oh, do not push. Jules, I hate that. And I looked to my left and there was this massive dump truck. And on the back it said, do not push
God.
in big white block letters. And I thought, okay, got it. Do not push. Got it. So he's still a friend. He's married to somebody else. And I am so happy I did not marry him. I think about this. And I hope he doesn't hear this because I feel terrible. But I think about this often. I am really glad we didn't end up together because I probably would have killed him. He would have absolutely
metaphorically, of course.
Metaphorically, yes. I may watch a lot of CSI, but I would never actually commit murder. So I'm really thankful for some things that didn't work out. And I think there's this whole concept along with Do Not Push unanswered prayers. There have been things I have prayed so hard for, and then I don't get them, and I look back and think, that was really fortunate. I'm really glad that didn't work out, because it would have changed the trajectory of my life in a way I wouldn't have wanted. Or I would have compromised some part of myself I am happy I still have.
Absolutely. No, I think it's an important reminder, and we may go with "Do Not Push" as the episode title, because I do really like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because we tend to focus and push, and like we think we know what we want. We think we know what it is,
Yep.
and sometimes we don't, and then we're up against, we're hitting constant obstacles and roadblocks. Things should kind of unfold easy. That doesn't mean
it should just be
right.
easy. It's so funny. My same best friend, her sister said, with every guy I've dated, it's been really difficult and it's been a struggle. And with her now husband, who she loves, it's just easy. James is just easy to be with. And I thought, oh, that's such a good takeaway. Like, you and Jeff are good together because it's easy. You're just good together and it's easy to be with him. And he puts up with your craziness. You put up with, I don't know what Jeff's flaws are, because I don't know Jeff well
has
enough
no
for him to have flaws. So, but it's easy, right? Like, it's someone that you could come home to and you could just be happy with, and you didn't have to force anything. You don't have to be a fake version of yourself. You're just yourself, and take it or leave it,
Right, and there's good balance. But even outside of the relationship domain, even if we apply this to other areas of life too, like with career and stuff, like sometimes we get focused on like, oh, this is what I want. I got to push, and then you're hitting roadblocks and it's not working. And that doesn't mean that like everything happens easy and without challenge, but there's a difference between like letting it be easy and letting it unfold and going with it, and then constantly just bashing your head against the wall and pushing for something or trying to force something that just isn't happening. And I find that things that are meant for me they'll find me, and that
and sometimes I don't want them at first when they find me. And I think like, oh, that's not what I want. Like, that is not how I envisioned this being. But I do it, and then I think, oh my God, that was awesome. Right. I'm really glad I took that chance, or talked to that person, or went on that interview, whatever the case may be. I think the universe kind of presents you with what you're supposed to be doing, even if you don't recognize it at the time. And you can look back and say, oh, I didn't think I wanted that, but I'm really glad I did that.
Right.
I'm really glad I went to work at Starbucks because I met Jeff. Like, there you go. You could do some little like, Starbucks was probably not an enjoyable job, but
actually I met really wonderful people, so I look back fondly on my barista days. Not only did I,
and you probably still make really good
get a husband out of it, but a few of my still close friends all met during that time period. It was a brief, for my listeners that don't know, as I don't always talk about this, which is no big deal, but before I was going to grad school the first time, I'm trying to remember where this was in the timeline. So before I earned my master's in school counseling, I needed a second job, and I went to the local Starbucks that had just been built on Route 1 in Saugus, Massachusetts, and I was hired, and I met my future husband and one of my best friends and other wonderful people there. So it wasn't the worst. I do recommend getting a second job at Starbucks if you're looking for love.
That is our secondary takeaway.
Yeah, see? Oh, that's excellent. I think it's an important thing to kind of remember when we think about challenges that we face and obstacles, and really what is best for us, and it may not be what we think it is, but the universe is directing us, and to be open to that. In another one of your chapters, and this really stuck with me, and this had me thinking after reading it too, you ask, when were you the happiest? That made me really reflect, because I think that we don't do that often, and we tend to just kind of get wrapped up in everything and everything we have to do. But it's interesting to think about, like, when were you the happiest? So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I can. I'll give you the quick backstory. So one of my girlfriends, she travels for a living, and she had been in Seattle on a 6-week stint and then moved back home wherever she was living at the time. I think it was Iowa. And we had kind of disconnected, both changed jobs. And then she reached out and said, I'm moving back to Seattle. And I'm like, really? You were there for 6 weeks? She's like, no, Sam, it's the happiest I've ever been in my life. For those 6 weeks, I got up every day. I had a routine. I went for a walk. I loved being near the water. It was my perfect life. And I thought, wow, that's impressive. I don't know that I've ever had that before. And I kind of did this inventory of my life. Like, when was I the happiest? And of course you could say like it was a big milestone. I got my PMP, I graduated college, I paid off my debt, whatever it may be. But it's probably not. It's probably a really innocuous day that was just awesome, or a week that was really great. And then I thought, okay, could I be happy or happier with just changing small things? So like we talked about taking breaks and self-care, kind of the same vein. Do I need to go out and spend $400 on a weekend to be happy? Probably not. I could probably go for an aimless drive with a playlist and a girlfriend and a cup of coffee and have a really great day. So what are those things that kind of make me the happiest that are also good for my mental health and easy to do and not like go to Disney World? That's not always accessible, right? So
It is the happiest
what are
place
the
on
things
earth,
that
isn't it?
happiest place on earth? And honest to God, I've actually only been there once when I was 4, but I am told it's the happiest place on earth. So I made this list of what the kind of things that make me the happiest and then compared the things I did every day. And I still try to do that every couple months to say, like, how could I be happier? Especially seasonally. Summer was difficult. I was trying to both sell and buy a house, and I was really stressed out. And I kept thinking, okay, in the middle of this chaos, how can I be happier today? And I think people maybe don't think about it, a daily thing you're doing. Could it be going to yoga would make you happier? Yeah, it might. Could it be letting yourself get some sleep? Could it be that you're just tired? Like, could it be you need to see more people that bring you happiness and make you excited to be around them? Could it be that you're doing stuff just because you think you have to, and maybe you don't have to anymore? Like, I have a lot of friends that they're in a book club or they're doing an activity that they actually kind of hate. If you hate something, stop doing
Stop
it.
doing
Right?
things you don't like
Stop
doing.
doing things you hate. Yes. You are an adult. You don't have to be friends with people you don't like anymore. Shocking as it may
I
be.
love it. That's some really good self-care advice right there.
Thank you.
But it is true that like we tend to focus on negative. We grind and we go and we're busy, and we're like,
Hustle
yeah,
culture.
and we don't
Yes.
take a minute to just make sure we're happy. Like, and it sounds so silly because it's like, oh, I'm happy, I want to be happy. But like,
Yeah.
it's not. Like, you have to do things that bring you joy, that bring you happiness, whatever you want to call it. But it is really important. And I like how you talked about kind of the shift there with that. And I think we can even, I'll share one of my favorite mindfulness practices for folks. If you, the end of the day, or even partway to maybe during lunch, like whenever you want to do it, see if you can find one thing that day that went well. What went well? Because what do we worry about when the workday ends? What are we telling our husband, our partners, our family about? We're complaining usually about everything that went wrong. We usually don't focus on something, even a small thing. Maybe your coffee was delicious. Like, it can be something small, but try to shift and find what went well. There's actually research to support that when you do things like that, and even when you practice gratitude, it actually rewires your brain to promote more happiness. So the more you do this and build this skill, it actually will make you feel better and better over time the more you engage in it. So I love that.
I love
Well,
that. No, I love that. My best friend and I had this period, maybe 2019, where we would text each other 5 happy things every
I
day.
love that.
I almost feel like I should get back to doing it because there were days when it was like, Julie, it is a struggle to find 5 things to be happy about, but I am trying. Here are 5 things, and some of them are pathetic, but I don't care, right? Like, I watched Married at First Sight, and that made me happy, whatever. But I think it's important to find what are those things that you got a boost from during the day instead of just complaining, to your point, because it's really easy to say, oh my god, my boss was so annoying and this team is not doing what I want them to and I had to move my office 6 times and whatever.
Right. And that's where we tend to focus our energy. I love that. So you and your friend every day would text 5 things.
5 happy things, and I'll tell you the list. It was really sad.
5 feels aggressive to start.
Struggle.
I'm going to be honest. I think if folks are hearing this and want to start,
I think if it was 3,
even one,
even just one would be lovely. Yes.
One thing every day.
So it's funny. My brother is one of my best friends, and he's kind of a complainer. So he will come off and be like, "Oh, today," and I'll always say, was there any good things that happened? And he'll be like, "Yeah, okay, there was a couple." And he can find his one good thing. So I should do that with him. Make him find his one good thing first every day.
I like that. Well, sometimes I'll say too, like in my work life, it's like, it's always a lot of what we can't do. I'll be like, all right, so tell me what we can do. I got a good handle on all the bad.
We have budget constraints. Yes, we have resource constraints. Everybody has those. Tell me what we have.
Can we do? That's really what I care about. So, but it's a shift to do that. And that really gets into developing a growth mindset and stuff like that. But I think we can start really small with even just every day. Even just write it down. If you don't want to text it to somebody, if folks should comment. We'll put up a thread on Facebook about this so they can email me. Like, I want to hear what you're happy about.
Yes, and if it's something stupid, we're not judging you.
It can be totally small because it's important. And it will actually make us feel better and more productive. And the more we can engage with happiness and life that way. I'll also put a few books in the episode recommendations. As I've read a few books on this topic, like Flourish by Martin Seligman, or The How of Happiness is another really good one that folks may enjoy. They're more about positive psychology and stuff like that, but that's what we're talking about here.
There's one by Gretchen Rubin that I'm Googling to try to find the name of. Okay, it's called Better Than Before.
Oh, very good.
So Better Than Before. The whole shtick is how you can just be a little happier the next day than you were the day
Just
before.
A little bit.
There you go.
Just a little bit. In one of our other podcast episodes, if folks have heard it, we did talk about, the intentionality and how you get to choose how you feel. And you can choose when you wake up in the morning to be joyful or to be happy or to just be okay. Like, we don't have to go too crazy. If like happiness might be a leap, that's fine. Maybe we just feel okay or we feel good.
To the possibility of it being a good day.
Right. Excellent. One of the other things you shared in the book, and I think the quote was from your aunt, and it was something along the lines of, "You might not pass by this way again." And I thought that was just really beautiful in that, grasp a hold of life and those experiences. So I'm wondering if you can share just a little bit more about that.
I will. So I only have 2 tattoos. That is my first, and it's on my back, and it's my aunt's quote. So she was married to my uncle. They lived in Michigan, and she was from the South. So she was this like spitfire, red hair, Southern draw, super sassy. And we would go visit them in the summer, and she would take us all around Michigan. We go like far road trips, like up to Mackinac Island, out to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like, she was always up for whatever we wanted to go do. But if we were driving someplace and saw something cool, I would say, "Oh, that's cool. We should stop on the way back." She would stop the car and be like, "No, you might not pass by this way again. You got to get out and look at it now." And of course, in the moment, you're so annoyed because you're like, "I don't want to get out of the damn car." But every time we get out of the car, something awesome would come. We would find a really cute fruit stand. We would find a little like niche shop. We'd find a cool ice cream place, like some kind of little knickknack you bought, or you'd see a really pretty sunset. So over the course of all these trips, we would always, "Oh, you might not pass by this way again." And in the case of Michigan, because it's so damn big, there are so many highways and byways, you usually didn't come home the same way.
Oh.
So if you didn't stop right then, you might not actually go by it again. So physically, it was an actual, hey, tangibly, if you want to get out of the car and do this,
do it now. Now's your
chance.
We're
not coming back this way. But I kind of adopted it as my life mantra because so many things in life I either didn't feel ready for, or I would tuck myself out of being worthy of and say like, no, that's not right for me. That's right for somebody else. Or there would be promotions that I would literally be saying my coworkers were more deserving of than I was. And I had a moment where I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, life is passing me by. And if I don't jump on and start taking a hold of these things, I'm going to be 60 and look back thinking, God, I wish I had done more things. Like, I wish I had, carpe diemed a little bit more. So I started seizing the day more. And the kind of long story short, I had gone to see her in Michigan, and she was actually sick. She had pancreatic cancer. And while we were visiting, she asked if I had been living our shared mantra. Like, all right, what have you done, girl, since I last saw you? And I said, when I was in Georgia, I went and found peaches. Like, just drive out and buy someplace to get peaches. When I was in San Diego, I went and found a place that made recycled surfboard jewelry. And I bought myself a pair of earrings.
Fun.
I was literally trying to, live our shared mantra, right? Like, just go find something cool and go do it, right? If I saw something cool, I would stop. I stopped at yard sales. I stopped at random places to take pictures of sunsets. So I tried to live our shared mantra, and now, since she passed, I still try to do the same thing. So you might not pass by this way again in life or physically on the road. So make sure you stop.
I love it. And be open to that spontaneity of life and that excitement. And I love, I was going to say it sounds very seize the moment, carpe diem-esque. So I like that you kind of drew that parallel for us, because but it's really beautiful. You may not pass by this way again, but it becomes a delicate balance. I think back to when we were just talking about the not push, but because we want to be open to opportunities, but not not in a forceful way. Right. And not in a pushy way. We can let it unfold, but also be open. That's where the magic happens, right? That's where I
think sometimes I get really excited about something and I end up ruining it for myself. So I will hear of an opportunity. I will think, okay, I could probably be interested in that. But I will try to think to myself, okay, don't push, because you don't want to seem too aggressive, right? Like, as a woman, you're taught not to seem too aggressive. And then I get in my head about it and I lose the magic. So I have to kind of remember to don't push, but still be excited when something presents itself and just go with it. Be open to it being better than you could have thought without having to overanalyze it.
Right.
Which is a tough.
And when it comes to pushing or forcing other things too, it's okay to take a step back and think, maybe this isn't, what is this trying to teach me? Like, maybe this isn't the path. Like, I thought this was it for me and I was going in this direction, but I'm hitting so many roadblocks.
Yep.
So what is the lesson here? Maybe this is redirecting me to something bigger and better.
I just joked that I was trying to, buy and sell a house over the summer. So I own my parents' house, and I was trying to sell their house and then buy a bigger house for my dad with an in-law and for my brother who still lives with me. And we put in 16 offers and we got denied every single time. And then we were getting offers on our house that were really low and had contingencies. And I finally had a moment where I'm like, nope, the universe is telling me to scrap this and renovate. So I scrapped it. I decided to renovate. And I will say within 24 hours, I found a contractor, an architect.
That's a great example.
That were perfect. And I thought, okay, obviously I was not letting it dawn on me that this is what I was supposed to be doing. I mentioned my mom had passed. I swear to God, she's in heaven being like, hello, I'm trying to tell you.
You're not listening to me.
You're not listening, Samantha. Right. So like message received, got it, let's renovate. And now literally everything has been so seamless that I'm like, oh, this is what I was supposed to be doing. I just was not picking it up.
It's falling into place. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's a great example. I was trying to think of like an example if we could share like something like that we could come up with. And I know like for myself, different times, different like career things and different things that have happened. And even, okay, I just came up with an example. At one point after I finished my master's, I was still trying to kind of find myself. And actually this was before I embarked on the master's program. Excuse me. I was doing film work in Boston. I was working as an extra in Hollywood feature films, which sounds very glamorous. It was at times, but I was doing commercials. Like I was traveling back and forth to New York for auditions. Like that's kind of where, this was many, many years ago. And I thought this was kind of where my life was headed, but I was hitting roadblocks, lots of roadblocks. Then I decided I was going to go to law school. I decided that, you know what, I'm just going to go to law school. So I studied for the LSATs. I did terrible on them. I did not get into law school. And I was just like, what is going on? And then I had someone that I worked with at the time, and I kind of took a step back, and she was like, she actually told me that she told this other kind of mentor person that I look up to and someone who's another educational expert leader. And she's like, oh, I told so-and-so that you were going to go to law school. And he said, that's a tremendous loss for education. And I thought, whoa, what a nice compliment. But I was like, wait, huh? Like I was taken aback, and it made me take a step back. And then I really looked at the work I was doing at the time. Like the theater stuff was side at this time, but I was really loving the work that I was doing. And I realized that it was very aligned with being a school counselor. So I applied for the school counselor. I took the Miller assessment. You had to take all the things. I got right into grad school for the school counseling, like with ease, got in. And then the path from there has really unfolded. And although, the Dr. MC stuff is in self-care, where I'm always, though, looking to support teachers. I also work in public education now. And I've had really wonderful, unique experiences. If I had really pushed for that law school thing, I probably eventually would have got into law school and would have been successful as a lawyer, maybe.
Right. You're smart enough, could have done it, but you might have been miserable.
Exactly. So, but that's an example of, I kind of saw the path one way, but there were roadblocks, and then I had to kind of step back and really look at what I was doing and what brought me happiness and what aspects that I like. And the theater stuff was also, I was hitting roadblocks with that as well. And that was taking the joy out of something that brings me a lot of joy, dancing and performing. Like I love that, but as like a hobby, like that's a sacred space for me. And to try and do it at that level was taking any joy and any fun out of it. So I was like, this is not working. So anyway.
And then it becomes a chore. And what do we do with chores? We ignore them.
And it's not good for anybody. It's not good for anybody's self-care. But anyway, I also want you to make sure that you tell us where folks can find you and engage with you. If folks want to buy your book, we'll make sure that gets linked in the episode notes. I think you have a website now, so tell us where we can find you.
I do. So yes, I decided I was doing a WordPress, and I decided to be a big girl and get a real website. So I have a real website now, and I will give a shout out to my wonderful web designers. Let's Design Your Site is their name. They're amazing. Jesse and Dave are a husband-wife couple in New Hampshire. So it's sheissparkling.com. They did all my pretty design work. My logo was made by my awesome artist friend who also did my book cover, Tyler Donnelly. So book will be available on my website, on Amazon, which is kind of cool to say. Hey, go to Amazon and look me up. Yep, Samantha Seelig. Okay. And then I have a little Instagram that I've been trying to put stuff up on. I think I'm going to do a feature on some of my beta readers I'll feature in the Teresa podcast, because I really have learned so much about my own self-care since you started doing that. So I'm grateful for you to be posting that. And yeah, thank you for having me. This was super fun.
Excellent. So we'll make sure that's all linked. And you said sheissparkling.com.
That's right.
And is the Instagram handle?
Been my moniker forever. She is
Perfect.
Sparkling. Yeah.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to be sure.
I think it's my moniker on every website except one where I'm like, who's the other person that has this? Should we be
we need
friends?
to
We
find that
fight?
person and buy
sure.
that domain or whatever it is that they have.
Yeah.
We'll do it now, soon. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
But anyway, do we have a release date in mind? Fall-ish?
We're hoping for we're hoping October 1st. So we'll say October. No, I'm hoping to get it. Yeah, I'm hoping to get it up in the store by the 1st, and then I think it's available as of that day. So kind of exciting. 2 weeks.
Very exciting.
Oh my gosh.
Very exciting. So we'll make sure all that information is included. Thank you so much, Sam, for joining us here
Thank
today
you.
on the Dr. MC Self-Care Cabaret podcast. It was delightful to chat with you. It was so much fun to chat with Sam on the podcast. Her book is now out and available on Kindle and a printed version. She is Sparkling, a collection of selections, Volume 1. Be sure to check it out and don't skip past the foreword. That's a Dr. MC original. I'm so thrilled for my friend having achieved her goal. There are lots of little tips and takeaways in this episode to help us on our journey of self-care, such as texting a friend 5 things daily to be happy about. That's win-win all around, as you will also engage in the relationship domain of self-care by doing this as well. And if you can't think of 5 things, maybe you just text 1 thing that you're happy about. One of my favorite takeaways is the idea of letting it be easy. It's a great reminder, and I always try to think this way. When you push, the results will often not be what you wanted, or they may be fleeting. And I encourage you to think about, when were you the happiest? What were you doing? And how can you invite more of that into your life now? And remember, it can be a small tweak or a little shift that you make to boost your happiness. This is a very powerful practice. So let the journey unfold and enjoy the ride. Thanks for listening to this episode. Remember to subscribe and rate to this podcast on your preferred player. The ratings help us grow and share the message of self-care. If you have comments, suggestions, or questions, you can reach out directly by emailing podcast@drmcselfcare.com. That's drmcselfcare.com. And come join the cast party at Dr. MC's Self-Care Cabaret on Facebook and Instagram at Dr. MC Self-Care, or on my website, drmcselfcare.com. And be sure to like, subscribe, and love me across all my social media platforms for the most up-to-date information on self-care. See you next time. Stay well and do good.